What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Recently, we had Nintendo do their annual gathering of the shareholders, and they had a bunch of questions getting thrown around that were actually pretty good. Well, there's one in particular that discussed the leaks that were going on, and it seemed to reference even PRO, which we'll go over Nintendo's response here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Microsoft making an interesting move, working to once again bring more people to the Xbox ecosystem without necessarily owning the console. And then we have some new data going over how some of these big AAA games are selling on mobile devices like the iPhone, and well, we'll just say it's off to a slow start. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members of the channel do get Newswave early. If you'd like to learn more about that, click the join button down below this video. And we're gonna start today with Kadakowa Corporation, of course, the parent company then of FromSoft, as well as Nico Nico. As it appears, they have now become victims of a big ransomware hack. Now, we can see this posted up. This is over on IGN. Let's say From Software parent company hacked by ransomware gang threatening to release internal data. And they acknowledge this as a significant cyber attack. It's been mentioned that it's over 1 terabyte of data. And they have relayed this in a pretty lengthy report that they posted. And while it has not necessarily mentioned From Software, it's hard to say at this time how widespread this hack is within Kadakowa Group. IGN has reached out to From Software for comment or clarification just to get an idea as to if they are affected by this. They go on to say the ransomware group that perpetrated the hack posted a message saying that it had managed to download confidential and other information, including the personal information of employees. Kadakowa Group said that it is investigating the extent of the leakage with external organizations. We've seen this multiple times now, and really what ends up happening at the end of it, the parent company does not pay out, and then that ransomware group sells a portion of it sometimes. They're able to get money through like auction on the dark web, or they just release all the information. That's the big thing that's going on with Insomniac. That leak, that all came from a ransomware group that decided, okay, you're not going to pay. We're just dumping this information out there. The issue you run into is it does sound like there are a lot of personal files that would then get dumped online. So we'll keep an eye on this one to see how it continues long as Kadakowa Group continues their investigation. Also, I guess we have some better news when it comes to From Software. This has to do with Elden Ring and sales of the latest DLC. We can see this is posted up over on their official account, where they say Shadow of the Erdtree has surpassed 5 million copies sold worldwide. Thank you to all our users. We hope you continue to enjoy your adventures in the land of shadows. Thank you for your continued support of Elden Ring. That's pretty good in terms of conversion rate, considering it's not necessarily DLC that you just hit a few buttons at the menu and you're into it. Like, you do have to play pretty far into the base game. You have to beat who's an optional boss that isn't exactly easy. It's Elden Ring, and then you get into a portion of the game with Shadow of the Erdtree that is even more difficult. Well, I will say this, as I've gone through and I've gotten those DLC specific power-ups that you find in the world, I have been getting more powerful, and some of the bosses I'm beating second or third try, so I know the final boss is the big test, and that's the one that people are spending 20, 30, 40 hours on. Like that's the majority of the game, is trying to beat that final boss, and I'll get there eventually, but for now, I'm having a pretty good time just kind of exploring this new downloadable content for Elden Ring. Oh, and we did get a bit of a surprising announcement, this one from Aspyr and in the Star Wars universe, with Bounty Hunter getting a new release. I say new because we obviously came out back in like 2002, 2003, right? Somewhere in there. And we had it released also on the PlayStation 4. Well, it appears they're just doing a wide sweeping release on all platforms this time. We can see this with their new trailer that they released for it. It is coming out August 1st, releasing for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC, that through Steam. And I guess the big thing here is the original. There was supposed to be a Boba Fett skin or costume you could get when you beat the game or got all the bounties, and apparently it wasn't in the game, it didn't work or something. Well, they are adding that in for this release. I mean, the game itself, it is a good game. It wasn't as popular, I guess, as like any of the games really with lightsabers in it, or even technically games where you're flying around X-Wings like with Rogue Squadron, but it was still a classic title, and I guess at this point more and more people will be able to play it, as it's technically then just on the PS4 and the PS5 through backwards compatibility, but you can check that one out here in a couple of months when it releases. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo, as they were pretty much grilled by investors during their gathering of the shareholders, as they typically do. They'll have all kinds of questions getting thrown around, and many of them Nintendo will do their best to sidestep, since it's like, hey, what's the next system called? What are you doing with it? That is a common thing, and Nintendo's like, we're always working on new hardware, and then they just kind of move on. But there were some pretty good questions that provided insight into Nintendo's approach when it comes to announcements, plans when it comes to development, Miyamoto's future. So I think what I'm going to do is have a separate video where we go over all the different questions, as N Styles on Twitter X was able to catalog a lot of the questions as they were happening, so we can sort of go through them and do like some machine translation to get an idea as to what was asked there. But I did want to point one question out, as it came on the heels of this whole Kadakowa situation with the ransomware there and everything that happened with PRO, because here's the thing, I want to make sure I remind people of this. When Bloomberg covers something, investors are very much aware of it. And in this situation, as strange as the timeline has become, yes, one of the Bloomberg articles and reports did cover PRO leaking stuff from Nintendo. Most of it was just going back to the source of, oh, it had to do with a person who was who had access, say, to the eShop stuff behind the scenes before it went live, but then also the situation when it comes to YouTube and how it seemed like employees within YouTube were able to just gather information out of private videos that they were able to view before anyone else. But we can see this here with the question. This is posted up by Nintendo Everything, translated from N Styles. The question was regarding information security measures. Kadakowa was recently attacked and was unable to broadcast Nintendo Direct on Nico Nico Live broadcasting. Nico Nico is owned by Kadakowa, so obviously with the hack mostly seemingly focusing on Nico Nico and sort of the streaming and just video on demand platform there, it wasn't able to do much of anything then. There are also a story about an insider leaking information on YouTube. I would like to know what kind of investments you are making and what measures you have in place regarding information security. They answered saying, we have become aware of the specific issues pointed out through media reports and other sources. We work with specialists, companies, to diagnose information security and take various other measures. The company has introduced information security management as part of its internal information security system and is also working on continuous education for employees. So while, I mean, obviously a lot of people are focusing in on the idea of leaks getting out through eShop listings behind the scenes or YouTube employees pulling info, I think there's a very important part of this with Nintendo just educating employees not to have their password pulled through social engineering or leaving a door open essentially on like their network and servers and stuff. That is mostly how these ransomware groups get in and then extract information. It's not like, I feel like people envision like Mr. Robot or Ocean's 11 or some craziness that's happening behind the scenes where they're like Mission Impossible their way in, when really it's just they figure out a pretty basic password that an employee uses that's a combination of like last name, birthdays, that kind of thing. And then once they figure it out and they get in, they don't need that much time to start pulling gigabytes or even a terabyte or so of data. And I will say, if Nintendo suffered a significant ransomware breach like we're seeing with some of these companies and the amount of data that got out there around not only Insomniac, but just Sony in general, and then you see how secretive Nintendo is with pretty much everything, yeah, that would be devastating, we can say, for Nintendo. It wouldn't be great. I mean, the Giga Leak gave us a lot of info, but that was past info. Now think about if Nintendo's roadmap for the next 6 or 7 years leaked out and we knew everything that was coming. Yeah, that would be problematic for them because it also extends beyond just games. Now they're dealing with other companies and different mediums with movies and theme parks and other collaborations. So yeah, go figure. Nintendo taking this very, very seriously. So hopefully they're putting the right measures in place and we don't hear about some massive ransomware breach later on. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft making an interesting announcement that should work to bring Xbox games to a bunch of people just about overnight. as it has to do with a collaboration with Amazon and their Fire TV sticks. Now, these are like these little, I mean, they look like almost like USB flash drives. They plug into your HDMI port. And I'm sure many of you are already aware of what I'm talking about or even own one of these. That was the poll question, by the way, so we'll see how that split went exactly. But really the idea was it would add streaming platforms and other entertainment to a TV that doesn't have it already built in. Or who knows, maybe you just prefer the Amazon setup, you have your account already set up and linked to it, you like the remote, there are a number of reasons why. But it does seem that Microsoft has finalized a partnership with Amazon to bring their Xbox app to it. We can see this is posted up over on their news.xbox.com site. And they say in July, the Xbox app will be available on Fire TV Stick 4K Max of 2023. As you can see, it's $60. And the Fire TV Stick 4K 2023, that's $50. For people new to console gaming or for those looking for another way to play, it's a great low-cost, convenient, and portable option to enjoy a huge library of incredible games. And it starts to make sense why Keystone got shelved, because even if they made that thing for $150 with a controller, it still is work to get people to actually buy the thing. Whereas in this sense, our streaming platform actually works on Fire TV sticks. Amazon sells those constantly to a mainstream audience. Let's just get it on there and try to sell people a controller. Or here's the thing with Xbox's streaming platform for games that I'm sure many people don't realize. There are a number of controllers you can use with it. Most of us go, okay, you need an Xbox controller, you sync it up, and that's how it works. You can even use like a DualShock 4 with it, and it will function. So that's the biggest hurdle Microsoft is trying to figure out right now, is the controller situation, because that's something that can just immediately have someone go, oh, well, okay, I was going to try it, but I don't have an Xbox controller that can sync up to the TV, so I guess I'll just jump over to Netflix. There's that spur-of-the-moment entertainment that people are looking for, and it could be a video game if they already have all the pieces in place. In this sense, though, you have your Fire TV stick, it's hooked up, oh, there's the Xbox app, and okay, I need a controller. My PlayStation controller, let me grab that, and then you can start playing Fallout, which ties together very nicely with that Fallout series, and it wouldn't shock me if maybe Microsoft got to a point where you could be in Amazon Prime Video and you're watching season 2 of Fallout, whenever that comes out years from now or so, and you're done the last episode, and it brings up the idea of you playing maybe Fallout 4 or Fallout 76 right then and there, because you don't have to download or install anything. You just have to sync up a controller and you're good to go. So I think there are some bridges they can cross in that regard to continue to boost just Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription, because that's what all of this comes back to, is getting more and more people on board with Game Pass Ultimate. Can streaming eventually get there to where it feels native to play? I mean, they're making strides, but it still has a long ways to go. However, for, again, spur-of-the-moment entertainment for mainstream audiences, maybe it can work out. We'll see how it goes when it does come to these Fire Stick, or these Fire TV sticks, next month in July. Next up, let's talk about some of these AAA games that are going to different iPhones. Like, we've seen Capcom and Ubisoft really try to make a push here, and it does seem like Apple is funding a bunch of these ports to make it happen, to maybe show off what their iPhones and the new M series chips can do. But it also looks like sales aren't exactly going well right out of the gate. In fact, it's off to a pretty slow start. We can see this was posted up. This is over on mobilegamer.biz, where they say our calculations based on app figures estimates suggest that under 3,000 people have paid $50 to play Assassin's Creed Mirage on iPhone since it launched on June 6th. It has been downloaded approximately 123,000 times, with gross revenue of 138,000 to date, says App Figures. You can play the game, of course, on iPhone 15 Pro, iPhone 15 Pro Max, and high-end iPads, which I'm sure does limit the number of people who have access to it, but still, it's been downloaded, as they say, 123,000 times. The conversion rate, though, not great. Basically, you can download it, play for, I don't know, an hour or so to try it out, and then you have to pay money to convert over to play at $50. Many people just aren't. App Figures also estimates that Resident Evil 4 has been downloaded 357,000 times, with revenue estimated to be 208,000, and based on the game's $30 price tag, this suggests that roughly 7,000 people have paid to unlock full game in its 6 months on the market. There are other estimates, some being maybe a bit more favorable, but none of them showing a significant conversion rate for any of these games. Even something like Death Stranding at $20, and that was just a premium upfront like payment. You weren't getting like a free trial or anything. That didn't exactly like jump off the charts. So it's been slow going for some of these big titles going to iPhones and iPads. And I just feel like that is a platform that has so many options that are just cheaper and probably fit the phone better than Assassin's Creed Mirage. That still is really, to me, a game that you would want to have a controller paired up, and then you're kind of throwing everything off with a phone that is supposed to be pick up and play and really not needing much else because you're stuck at the DMV or wherever, sitting in a waiting room somewhere, and you're like, okay, let's just play Cut the Rope for a little while. It's easy. It doesn't take much to think about to play it, or you just fire up an emulator. Basically, there are way more options that are either free or like 10% of the cost that's probably sucking up most of the money, and then also most of the time. That said, I think it is pretty cool to see these big titles just functioning and actually running better than you'd expect on these mobile devices. So I do hope more and more of these games attempt to make the jump, because I just think it's fun to see what these low-power chips are capable of, especially in a cell phone. Think back 20 years ago, what we were dealing with cell phones and where we are now. It is legitimately impressive stuff how far we've come that quickly. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about some good news coming out of Ubisoft for Assassin's Creed fans, especially people who would like to see maybe some of the old titles revisited and remade. There's one in particular that people seem pretty excited about, but let's take a look. This is from an interview over on Ubisoft's own website. This is the question here, where they asked, on an Assassin's Creed front, we've had Mirage, which was a leaner homage to the series' roots, and now Shadows, which is much larger in scope, and more in the vein of Odyssey Valhalla. Looking at the future, can we expect this continued variety? Smaller games alongside bigger ones. This is from Yves Guillemot, who says, firstly, that's the CEO of Ubisoft, saying, firstly, players can be excited about some remakes, which will allow us to revisit some of the games we created in the past and modernize them. There are worlds in some of our older Assassin's Creed games that are still extremely rich. Now, that's the big line that everyone's looking at, saying, oh, okay, so they just confirmed that, yes, they're going to be remaking Assassin's Creed games. We had that report not too long ago that mentioned that Assassin's Creed Black Flag was getting remade, and people went, what? Why do we need that so soon? And it's funny to think about it, but it's been more than a decade now since the game came out. So you get 10 years later and it's like, well, okay, I guess you can look back at that, and it is still probably one of the most popular, or at least the most fondly remembered Assassin's Creed game. Is very, very good, and sure, why not? If you're going to remake one of them, go ahead and do that. But one that I think would be really, really cool to see remade is just the first Assassin's Creed. Think about it, in 2027, so we'd still be 3 years off, but in 2027, that game will be 20 years old. And I think it just had such an impact when it first showed up. Obviously, it was the start of an IP that is still long running, and to be honest, probably holding up most of Ubisoft at this point. And I think it'd be fun for them to go back, modernize it, because that game could use it, without trying to jam every single RPG element into it. So that's my hope, but hey, I'm not going to complain if Assassin's Creed Black Flag shows up at some point and it looks awesome. So sure, go ahead and remake some of these older Assassin's Creed games while you still continue to develop new ones, since their big push clearly is having like an Assassin's Creed game every, 18 months or so. It's a lot of Assassin's Creed coming up. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, do you own an Amazon Fire TV stick? 73% say no. Okay, 27% of people, though, say yes, and that's really the thing, is Microsoft just looking for more people that it's convenient. They already have the thing, and the Xbox app shows up, that logo is right there, ready to be downloaded and used. So that's really what they're considering now. They already have it on some Samsung TVs, get it on Fire TV sticks, and then maybe work into LG TVs and continue on from there, right? And just make it widespread. So it's almost like you look at a TV and you're scrolling through and you have Netflix, Amazon, Disney Plus, Hulu, Xbox. And it's just a common thing. It's something you expect to be there. Maybe they can get to a point where they just start providing Xbox controllers for TV manufacturers to package in with it. That, I think, is the next big step for them, is just get as many Xbox controllers out there as possible. Or maybe they let Sony put DualSense, maybe they pay for Sony to put DualSense controllers with their TVs, and because that works with it as well. There's a lot of things they can do, just making this get as mainstream as possible. I still think just that streaming experience needs to get just a bit better before they can make that kind of a push though. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Jim, who says, seems like Capcom didn't want to pay Keighley for a 30-second teaser, and now everybody is talking about the game the same way. GOG should do more of these co-developments to bring other games to PC. I don't mind the games being exclusive there. They provide a good service. Here's the interesting thing about GOG, and I think people are just becoming more and more aware of this. I mean, sure, it's a platform or the service, but if you buy a game on GOG, which you can go on there and many games are pretty cheap, they have consistent sales that are competitive with Steam most times. If you buy it there though on GOG and you go to download the game, you're presented with two options. Yes, you can use GOG Galaxy, which I think is their own web launcher or something, or you can go down to another option that just lets you download the game for offline play outright. What it does is it installs it, so you have to like download it in so many parts, and it's pretty quick. But when you do that and you install it, you have an icon on your desktop, and that's it. Like, you don't go through a launcher. So it's actually very convenient, and it reminds me very much of what we had to do back in the day when you put a DVD or a CD or multiple CDs in and you installed it the whole way, CD key, and then you just had the icon on your desktop. You didn't go into a launcher. So I actually think GOG in general with those kind of options, it's technically better than Steam if you look at it that way. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Was Nintendo responding to investors when it comes to these leaks and these security breaches that are running rampant right now in gaming? How do you think the build up to their next system is going to be with them going around and just getting rid of all of these leakers? Then also, what about Ubisoft going back and remaking a bunch of these Assassin's Creed games? Which title in the series would you like to see them go back and revisit? Thanks guys for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time for Newswave.